Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Johanna Chan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Chief Executive hopeful John Lee canvasses for support, even though he has enough nominations. Students and teachers must test negative before returning to school for face-to-face lessons. And Emmanuel Macron takes on right-winger Marine Le Pen in the second round of the French presidential election. Former Chief Secretary John Lee has met several groups as he campaigned for the city's top job. He said he would also like to talk to people in all sectors of society, but that would depend on whether there's enough time and the anti-COVID rules. Maisie Mock reports.
Former Government Number 2 John Lee was busy today as he tried to win more support for his bid to become Hong Kong's next leader. Although it's believed that he has already secured enough nominations from election committee members, he met 10 political parties and groups today. The New People's Party threw its support behind Lee, with its chairwoman Regina Ip saying she does not have any regrets for not joining the race. Patrick Zhang, Chief Executive of Chow Tai Fook Enterprises, also nominated Lee.
I think he has proven leadership skills. What we need in the intermediate and in the immediate future is someone to lead Hong Kong away from the pandemic, to help propel the Hong Kong economy into further heights.
Lee was asked if he would meet members of the public.
My first priority now is to ensure that I am sufficiently prepared to register my candidacy with the electoral office. That is what I'm doing now. I, of course, welcome all opportunities to have dialogues with people from different sectors, but in the limit of time and also in accordance with the regulations under the anti-COVID strategy, I have to make arrangements in accordance with the actual circumstances.
Lee said he thinks the international business community would welcome his results-oriented approach. When asked whether he will relaunch the amendment to the extradition bill, Lee said that initiative came to a conclusion and has ended, adding that there are other priorities. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
New COVID cases in Hong Kong have continued to drop, but health authorities denied that few people took part in the government's 3-day rapid test program. Health officials instead said the numbers were reflected after the first day of voluntary self-tests that began on Friday. As people have until tonight to enter personal information to verify their results, officials say the actual numbers will be known tomorrow. Hong Kong registered 1,407 cases today, the lowest since mid-February. 57 deaths were reported, taking the tally in the fifth wave to 8,614. Students and teachers will have to take rapid antigen tests before going to school when partial face-to-face lessons resume next week. Those who test positive must stay at home and inform their school. Maisie Mock reports.
Half-day in-class lessons for primary schools resume next Tuesday after the Easter break. All teachers and school staff must be vaccinated.
Initially, for a period, we would require all the staff, the teachers and the students to take daily rapid antigen test, and they could only go into the school if the test is a negative one.
The government will provide 10 million rapid antigen test kits to schools to distribute to about 300,000 children from less well-off households. Classes will not be suspended if there are several positive cases, but the Center for Health Protection will investigate if more than 5% of a school population tests positive on any single day. Unvaccinated students will not be allowed to participate in after-school activities. but those who received 2 COVID jabs can take part in extracurricular activities such as sports and music. Secondary schools will return to in-class learning on May the 3rd. Kindergartens will resume in-person lessons in 3 phases, with 1/3 returning on May the 3rd. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Shanghai is easing a lockdown as Guangzhou suspended face-to-face lessons in primary and secondary schools to stop COVID from spreading. People have also been banned from leaving Guangdong's provincial capital unless they can prove that they are not infected. Guangzhou recorded 22 local cases yesterday. Shanghai, meanwhile, is ending a lockdown in some areas, although cases have reached a new high. The mainland's commercial hub had 25,000 asymptomatic and nearly 1,000 symptomatic cases yesterday. Officials are rushing food supplies to the city's 26 million people, many of whom have been forced to stay home for 2 weeks. In Hong Kong, National Security Police have arrested a man for allegedly conspiring to publish seditious materials. Sources say the suspect is veteran journalist Alan Au and link his arrest to the Stand News case in which 7 employees were detained under the same charge. At around 6 this morning, officers from the National Security Bureau searched the home of veteran journalist Alan Au and took him away, reportedly to Kwai Chung Police Station. Sources said his arrest was related to allegations of conspiracy to publish and disseminate seditious materials, reportedly linked to the case of disbanded online media Stand News. The same charge was laid against 7 senior Stand News staff who were arrested in December. Au worked as a host for the online news platform and wrote for various newspapers and online portals as a columnist. The 54-year-old was sacked last year from the RTHK program Open Line, Open View, which he hosted for 11 years. He said at the time that he believed he was dismissed because of his opinion pieces criticizing RTHK's senior management. Au, who is a professional consultant at the Chinese University's School of Journalism, specialized in media censorship and self-censorship. He had also worked as a senior news producer at TVB. Stand News shut down in late December after over 200 officers raided its office, froze $61 million in assets, and arrested 7 senior staff. Chief Executive Kerry reiterated that Hong Kong still has the rule of law when asked whether the arrest of journalist Alan Au would weaken the freedom of expression. Lam said freedom of the press and speech are guaranteed under the Basic Law, but the national security law must be strictly implemented. She added that Article 4 states that law must also protect freedoms guaranteed by the Basic Law. Chief Executive hopeful John Lee, meanwhile, said there is enough protection for free speech and the press under the Basic Law. Both Lee and Lam refused to comment on Au's arrest itself. Overseas, French President Emmanuel Macron will face right-winger Marine Le Pen in the runoff of the presidential election next Sunday. Round 2 is a repeat of the contest 5 years ago, but analysts believe that it will be much tighter than the 2017 race when Macron defeated Le Pen comfortably. Sarah Wang reports.
A sea of French and European Union flags heralded Emmanuel Macron to the stage at his election headquarters in Paris. He is seeking to become the first French president in 2 decades to win re-election. Campaigning under the message, All of Us, the 44-year-old secured 27.6% of the vote in the first round. That's a better result than 5 years ago, when as a political rising star, he snatched 24% to force a runoff with right-wing leader Marine Le Pen. Macron, whose support for market and labor liberalization struggled to win over the masses, urged his compatriots to trust him. Le Pen trailed with 23.4% of the vote, also slightly outperforming her last primary attempt in 2017. The 53-year-old political veteran vowed to be a president for all the French if she wins the second round next Sunday. Support for Le Pen has been rising in recent weeks as she toned down some of her radical rhetoric and focused on livelihood issues. This belief filled the air at a supporters' rally for leftist candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon, whose quest for the Élysée Palace ended when he came in third with only 22%. Mélenchon, along with candidates from the traditional center-left and center-right blocs, urged their followers to vote for Macron in the runoff. But far-right television commentator Eric Zemmour, who could muster only 7%, urged the French to support Le Pen. Sarah Wang, HKIBC.
The World Bank predicts that Ukraine's economy will shrink by 45% and Russia's by over 11% because of their war. As the conflict drags on, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer is scheduled to become the first European leader to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin since Moscow invaded Ukraine. Nehammer yesterday visited the Ukrainian town of Bucha, where the bodies of more than 150 civilians were found. Russia was accused of war crimes, but Moscow said the killings occurred after its troops withdrew from Bucha. Russia, meanwhile, said it attacked 80 Ukrainian military sites over the weekend. The assault came as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Moscow will step up attacks in eastern Ukraine. The Hang Seng Index gave up 3% today on concerns of higher U.S. interest rates and the mainland's COVID outbreak. Electric car maker NIO plunged 11.4% after production on the mainland was suspended because of supply chain disruptions. Tech stocks continued to decline. Live streaming platform Bilibili tumbled 13.2%. Mainland developer Genro Properties dropped 12.5% after missing interest payments on 2 bonds. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed the day down 663 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent down $16, Tracker Fund down 68 cents, Meituan down $9, Alibaba down $5.30. Kuaishou down $4.85, BYD Company down $17.60, Hong Kong Exchange down $12.20, JD.com down $7. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is trading at 8.54, British pound at 10.21, and Australian dollar at 5.83. Over in the UK market, the FTSE 100 is down 46 points. Inflation on the mainland has risen, driven by higher fuel and food prices. The Consumer Price Index for March was up 1.5% from a year earlier, compared with a rise of 0.9% in February. Vegetable prices jumped sharply, while supply disruptions in locked-down areas also contributed to rising costs. On top of that, fuel is 25% more expensive than a year ago. Factory inflation, meanwhile, eased to 8.3% as the manufacturing sector grappled with supply chain bottlenecks. On to the weather now. Sunny periods tomorrow, but there'll be low visibility in some areas. Temperatures will range between 23 and 30 degrees, staying hot apart from a few showers in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Monday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Johanna Chan. Thanks for watching. Good night.